Conversations with some of the greatest spiritual teachers, luminaries, and healers of today's world. Usher in new earth by living in your sacred heart. Quantum Conversations is brought to you by acoustichealth.com, home of music from the universe, online healing retreats, and this program. Claim your free registration to daily shows at acoustichealth.com. acoustichealth.com, your portal to the inner realms. Our program starts shortly. Welcome to another Quantum Conversation, brought to you by acoustichealth.com. I'm Loren Gailey, and I invite you to sit back as we enter the quantum realm, that space of the greater part of you. It is your connection to infinite possibilities, infinite potential, and infinite mastery. And welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for coming into this sacred heart space with us. Today, we are back with one of my favorite guests, Erik Roth, a shamanic astrologer. And today, he's here to talk to us about Jupiter and the beautiful level of synchronicity that happens in our life when Jupiter reaches into our field and our influence. Let's welcome Erik Roth back to Quantum Conversations. Hello, Erik. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Loren. It's really nice to be here again. I love doing this show with you, and just happy to talk about another important astrological initiation for all of us that we experience at various times in our lives, and what's going on collectively, and how much it's impacted each of us in as far as like the human collective on the world stage.
Yes, it's always very interesting to hear your take on it. So let's start with Jupiter. We know about our Saturn return, right? Is it 28 or 29 years? What is going on with Jupiter? We're going to talk a little bit about why it's important to know how Jupiter influences us.
Yeah, thank you. Jupiter has a really interesting symbolism and what it means in our lives, and has a lot of connection in the cultures around the world and connecting to it astrologically. On a real basic level for each of us, the planet Jupiter represents our vision quest path, our dharmic path, our path of spirituality and enlightenment. It is a path that one could say that helps us really become, in addition to the ascendant, our authentic selves in this lifetime, helping us to become that which our soul wants. And it depends upon what sign, to some extent the house position also plays a role, but on a basic level, what sign Jupiter is in when we're born, that gives us that pathway. And in addition to that, it does, as you mentioned before about synchronicity, it does connect us to that level of intangibility in our life, of synchronicity, of things that come together in certain ways that go beyond the rational mind, that connect us to a different experience of reality, and help expand our world, where things can, on a magical scale, really work together. And again, it depends on a wide variety of factors, but that's the basic level of what Jupiter brings into our life. And all of the above, it expands. It expands everything it touches in that way. And, this is in traditional astrology, Jupiter has always been looked at as something very positive and beneficial. Although there are certain circumstances where, depending on where it's touching, where it's activating, it could be experienced as something, challenging and difficult. And I say that in particular because of what took place in 2020.
All right, so let's start there. I know we've got some who are listening who would love to have you talk to what their individual chart might look like. But let's take a look at for the collective. What are you seeing for our collective? And you did reference last year. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. Okay. So it's really interesting, and one of the ways in shamanic astrology is to not put a planet in a particular category of whether it's good or bad, but to take it from a holistic, objective and shamanic perspective, and to say that it is unto itself what it is, regardless of how we might view it. We might view certain events as negative or bad or good or beneficial, but the planet itself is essentially not, has an agenda, in a good or bad way. So last year, the most important theme, at least some of the planets is concerned, was the Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto conjunction that really created enormous opportunity for change in the world and on the United States, but all across the globe. What Jupiter's role in that was to expand what Saturn and Pluto were doing, or were in their conjunction with each other. So it means that our level of experience was just amplified by Jupiter. And that made it even more profound and potent than would otherwise be if Jupiter wasn't there. And so what, we can look to that and we go, oh my God, did Jupiter do a bad thing or something? No, it simply allowed us a greater level of opportunity in our lives to experience transformation and change through the Pluto and Saturn archetypal processes, initiations in our life. And that conjunction between those two planets that's one of the most intense, conjunctions you could ever have is Saturn and Pluto. There are other things that could definitely add to that pie, but those two really come together like that. It is a powerful, potent, stress, pressure, death, rebirth, a chrysalis stage experience for humanity. And then Jupiter just amplified all of those qualities in our lives, in the collective. And I've done, many hundreds of readings over the last couple of years, and especially last year, it's interesting the synchronicity that comes in, and people having certain challenges or issues in their life, and they getting a reading from me, and a lot of them happen to be what we call on the front lines of that transit, meaning that they have, it took place in Capricorn primarily, and they happen to have some personal points or planets, like their sun or their moon or their Mars or Venus, were in that sign of Capricorn or on the other parts of the astrological wheel that correspond to that, which would be Cancer and Aries and Libra. So all those were being strongly activated last year. Now Pluto's still in Capricorn this year, so there's still that vibration happening. It's not completely, it hasn't completed its course. But Saturn and Jupiter have moved on, and they're doing something else in Aquarius this year, which we've all felt. which is something I'll definitely be talking about today. And so, you know, we all have different experiences in the reaction to the global pandemic, to the environmental and economic transformations and stresses, and the political strife, among others, which affects all of it, down to the very fabric of our society. And so some people benefited from what happened in 2020 in the sense that they were able to really transform themselves and see things that they would not have been able to see if this hadn't gone on. Others, could have been attached to certain processes in investing in certain things that completely collapsed on them. And so each of those presents a powerful opportunity for their own personal growth and, maturation, and also to reevaluate all of their life, the entire structure, the entire thing of who they are, what they've inherited psychologically and from their parents, from their childhood, and, or depending on the stage of life that they're in and what they could let go of, how they can detoxify themselves and what they can embrace as their own truth going forward in their lives. So Jupiter played this powerful role in expanding all of that. And so when a number of people are affected by this, it ends up becoming where, more and more of those just by, indirectly are affected by that, even if they might not have a particular personal cycle or initiation that takes place. They still can be affected by a lot of those around them that are affected personally. It could be family members, it could be friends, colleagues, all affected by that, even though they might not be on the front lines of that transit. So yeah, it's pretty profound, and I've done many readings around that, and it's just been interesting to see all the different ways people have been reacting to that initiation.
All right. Yeah. So let's talk about some of the different ways people have been reacting to this initiation. Have you seen those who are coming in a Jupiter return in this time of that great Saturn-Pluto-Jupiter conjunction? Have you seen that? And what was that like for people who had those influences?
Yeah, thank you that's a great question, because I have seen that, and it's also just coming into this form that in this sign of Capricorn, that a person who was born with Jupiter in Capricorn, this time they will never experience in their life a Jupiter return like what they've experienced in 2020, because Saturn and Jupiter won't be in Capricorn the next time Jupiter rolls around into that sign of Capricorn. So it's an extremely rare situation. In fact, it wouldn't have happened even in prior, since they've been born in that sign. The three planets were together before in different ways, not as close as 2020. So one is they get their Jupiter return in a way that is a lot more deeper and transformational and structurally active. I had some responses where things just collapsed on them. They lost their job. They were kind of in a space where they were not feeling good about the world and what they wanted to do. I had another response where they were able to embrace and take the time and see that this is okay, that this is just this a great space for them to realize what seeds they need to plant for their long-term future. Like this is that time. They've been given, you might say, permission by the universe to truly get into like, oh, what's this next stage of my life now? It's compounded by all this intense energy, and yet that person's got to step into maybe across a new role or redefine what they've put all their apples into, and go, wait, this may not be my true path. Maybe I need to look at other paths. And then still others would completely resist it and be unhappy with what they have, and fight to get back their what they did have at one time, what they felt was not fair, what took place, and beyond their control. This is the Pluto thing, is that the Pluto portion of this is things taking place beyond one's control, that no matter what they do, that they can't change, you might say, the circumstances, except to surrender to the initiation itself within themselves, and allow that process to take place, rather than fighting every ounce of their energy into resisting and trying to capture what they might be attached to, and what could be completely against what their soul is desiring. And so this could lead to a process that can help them recognize their deeper fears, their deeper level of wounds that where that can show up, and then maybe even transform. And at the same time, a Jupiter return will also still create synchronicities in their lives. So certain things can happen that help line them up with other opportunities. But a person in the deep world of Saturn and Pluto may not recognize the synchronicities, may not recognize the magic that's taking place. And so they, in a sense, they could miss it, but it doesn't mean they miss it forever. It's just simply may not have been the right time for them. But especially if they are, we're as creatures of stubbornness, we can resist that and move forward. But those are some of the major ways that I've had that experience with clients and with these transits. In some cases, they may have been an opportunity for, a different kind of relationship to come into their lives, or one where they needed to, it kind of amplified the toxic qualities of a particular relationship that needed to end for them. And it could have been their, even their Mars position, or their Sun, or Venus that was in that zone that allowed them to finally complete and change the game and decide they want something different. So there was a wide variety of responses, but everyone was impacted in a way that they felt it, on some level. They felt what was going on in the collective, and then even more, with some on a much more personal level. I've certainly done readings for people that have known either a family member or someone who's had COVID-19, and the challenge that presented to their lives, and all the people having kids and not being able to, take them to a place where they can be, go to school during the day so that the parent can actually work. All of these things, all these different factors, really shifted their livelihood experience in the future. So now we're having to pick up the pieces and, recovering and dealing with the aftermath of 2020, but still at the aftermath, or still in the process of this pandemic. And with now Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius, it's a different feel to the world, a different feel in our lives.
Yes, and so thank you for explaining that, and all of the factors and ways that people can experience that great transformation. I love how you say it's an opportunity for transformation. And really, we've seen that on this collective scale in so many ways. And even we've passed the equinox. Maybe we can check in on that. But we even felt, for those who are sensitive, that gateway of 2020 December solstice really felt powerful and potent. And that is related right here as Saturn and Jupiter did move into Aquarius. So now with this equinox and moving towards the solstice here in the Northern Hemisphere, we're still expanding in our daylight. What do you see going on with those equinox energies? How did those balance things out for us? Or did you notice anything like that?
There was definitely I think a potent transformation that was taking place, and with that equinox that came into our lives, Aries in particular, and still there's a very strong Aries initiation happening right now for humanity. And at this time, during that equinox period, we had, a number of things that we can connect to for ourselves. But obviously Jupiter and Saturn and Aquarius, I would say, help, really connect us up and outward and be able to see hope. But also, with Aries strongly in the picture, it meant a more vibrant, calling to action, to showing up for our lives, to see. And this is one of the wonderful things about the increase in sunlight, and now having more, and especially, primarily here, obviously in the Northern Hemisphere, but having more sunlight, having more daylight, having more, warmth coming in, it spurs growth. It initiates us into the desire to find, to seek out a new level of energy for ourselves, and to go forth into the world and contribute. To be of service, perhaps, to show up for family, for community, and it's that equinox, the balance of day and night, but the sun is crossing over the equinoctial projected line in the sky, so that it's along the equator. So that's means more daylight. It allows us to connect to this frequency where we can connect even more to the realization that we are deeply and intimately connected to Mother Earth. We have this powerful relationship with her, and with Aries, in an Aries kind of a way, to be the defender of her, to be to honor her in that way, and allow us to be in that space. And regardless of whether someone has Aries in their chart or not, it's opening up that energy for us. And for Saturn and Jupiter, and since we're talking primarily about Jupiter, as it's making its way through Aquarius, and gets there, it enters, actually, Jupiter enters Pisces in just a few days after the new moon in May, for a couple of months before it comes back into Aquarius. This is, it could be a time for, great ideals, a certain level of, and we saw it with the, I want to point that out, the bill that was passed in March, the rescue plan, for example. This is, I find that in this interesting way, both Saturn and Jupiter in their mix in Aquarius, and how Aquarian that bill was. It served a certain humanitarian type of initiation or effort into the world, but in a way that was very Saturnian, in the sense that it planted, more into the place where it served a longer term, both the short and longer term, but it served a longer term awareness for society and humanity to actually go, hey, certain people need help. Actually, all of people need help to be aware that this is happening. That we, that there are people, say, in poverty. There are people that are challenged with food and water insecurities and homelessness. That this is something that could be a first step toward what we could call a brighter future, as long as we're don't give up on that and just go, oh, this is it, and we're done with all the focus on helping our brothers and sisters and other members out there in the world. But I believe that the energy is helping spur on a certain level collectively of, hey, we can't ignore this anymore. We can't ignore the problems, at least here in the U.S. We can't ignore the problems here anymore. That we have to keep the attention on. Now, at the same time that can happen, in Aquarius, there's also there can be a counter revolutionary energy, idea and thought that it will resist, will try to be revolutionary in a way that may not be entirely real. And so you see also a counter effort into that space, that, can be susceptible to, to damage, to more wounding. And that in particular is noticeable, and something we have to continue to be aware of in that way, where we can't fall back down into the sinkhole that we were in before. So Jupiter Jupiter in Aquarius is a very, an enlightening kind of energy, expansive and really deeply into a certain level of, avant-garde innovation, experimentation, consciousness expansion, humanitarian efforts. And because Saturn's also kind of in the neighborhood, I see it as from a idealistic perspective, it could really serve the long-term future in a practical way. Not just where, say, if Jupiter was just in Aquarius without Saturn's help, then there could be things that may not necessarily stick in society for the long-term future. But Jupiter expands all of this and is helping promote it more and more, especially conscious awareness of things all around us. Now, if we go back to the Aries part that's happening right now, it's really, it's not, it's approaching it through, yes, what we might find is a certain level of courage to finally go forth into the world, and even if we're feeling that fear, we're standing up and we are speaking our voices in ways that's rooted in a certain reality, not from a place of falseness, but from a place of truth and sort of liberation from things that were holding us down for countless generations, perhaps. So this is that energy that we can tap into, all of us, for ourselves, regardless of whether we're in a cycle or not. Of course, for those that are in a cycle, this is also a highly pivotal time for those Jupiter and Aquarius people. You're getting a Jupiter return, and you may be getting also Saturn, either this year or next year, Saturn on your natal Jupiter. So that is helping you connect into a greater level of your own spiritual path. What is your dharma? What is your service into the world? What is your vision for your future? And where are you going to get your spiritual rewards from? And this is that energy that's coming forth for that person. So yeah, Aquarius is, I know there's certain circles that look that have kind of, put it into a negative light. And, on a personal level, I have an Aquarius North Node in Vesta. And, this is definitely there's a certain level of magic also happening within me as I, mature and move into another stage of life, if you will. And this has been, both Saturn and Jupiter have been helping me perceive a greater level of my own future, what my soul is desiring, what I'm wanting in this world. That's helping me tap into the greater, sort of this, I like to say the celestial world, because Aquarius has a deeper connection to that world, the upper world, the divine, the stars, synchronicities, and also sometimes change, great change that can occur from a perspective that's you might say necessary for our soul's growth. So this is a time that I look at the qualities, the underlying qualities of Aquarius. Jupiter in Aquarius is another one that's, breakthroughs in technology, breakthroughs in how we spiritually connect to the world. And Aquarius can create circumstances for that. And then I would be remiss if I didn't talk about how Uranus squares Saturn this year is something I talked about in a previous show, but it squared Jupiter earlier this year, and while they won't square again, they're still in the neighborhood with each other in that way, and so there's still a general impact from that. And so I find that we as a human society may end up having certain things that come into our lives that are going to be unexpected, unpredictable, and unplanned, but new, something we haven't experienced before. And Uranus is, a great conductor of that, and will help us with that energy. I mean, there are sometimes we might feel like we get a setback, but it's all in how we perceive it and what we might be attached to. It could be things that we didn't realize were toxic in our lives, and maybe that's presenting an opportunity to shift for ourselves, as hard as that may or may not be. I know of a particular client, a longtime client, and it took her years to come to the realization. And she came into that realization in 2020 that without a battle with alcoholism and a on and off again partner who also enabled that, and they ended up, from what I understand, went to got help and sought help together. And so this is that the intensity of the alignment in 2020, and now a certain level of one could say liberation that's taking place with Aquarius, presents certain level of growth and help from spirit allies, from other helpers that may be human or otherwise, especially the Earth Mother. So,
well, this is a beautiful way for people to really evolve and transform their lives. And you know what I love about it, just listening to you explain it, is that through this 2020 alignment and the incredible opportunities that sometimes probably felt like when push comes to shove, right, for some people, and people know what that means, but now here we are in the energies of 2021, which is liberation in Aquarius. So this is very hopeful. I want to point out to everyone to get a session with Erik for those who want to perceive their future and to really connect to a greater spiritual path, to really be able to navigate this in a way that makes sense for you. Sessions with Erik are available. We're going to talk about that. But let's do something really fun here. And for those who have their charts, I know that when people get a session with you, you give them a chart, and then you explain how that chart works. So let's just take an example here. Can you explain, for those who have their charts, we've got some questions coming in from a couple people as well that we can pass your way, but where would we find, so like I'm looking and I can see, I've got my chart up and I've got Jupiter in Cancer in the third house. So what would that mean?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yeah, I just saw a side note before I answer it. If people all they have to do is give me the birth date, and I can look up their Jupiter position. It's real easy for me to hear, so I can do that for them if they're not able to do it. But there's another way to do it, is looking at on astro.com. That's a free way to just go there and pull up a copy of your chart. Yeah, and there's also several apps on a person's mobile device that they can download that will also give them that information too.
Technology is amazing.
What's that?
Technology is amazing. Yeah. I know that I think about a decade or definitely 2 decades ago, it would take someone a few hours to put together a chart, and now it's instantaneous.
Yes, I feel very grateful for that, to be able to quickly look up things like that. It is one of the amazing benefits of having that knowledge right there in front of you like that, anywhere you go. I also still carry the books, the ephemeris books, which can also, I still love books, and I still love to read them and do the research as well as in collaboration with what I see, connect with research on the internet. But yes, so an ephemeris book, and there's people love those kinds of books. Those are other ways to get that. But yes, so Lauren, Jupiter in Cancer is, so your, one could say here, your path, your Vision Quest path through, as a sort of a experiential path. I like to, use that as well from the Shamanic Astrology. Cancer's, it's a kind of a path that is about truly nurturing and helping others. Successfully raising a family, opening up heart, through compassion and empathy, and the responsibility to care for others. And this could also show up. A person doesn't necessarily need to have specifically, what if I don't have a family and I have Jupiter in Cancer? That's okay. You can apply it in other ways, and that ways can be with gardens and animals and helper and healer at out there at, say, even hospitals or medical centers or assisted living facilities, anywhere where there's a need for that compassion and that heart, social work. There's many other kinds out there where cancer could show up, and it's, highly valued. It's also about, as a path, providing a safe space, providing nourishment to others. And being in there, it's a what we call a household or a culture bearer type of sign. In traditional astrology, they would call that a cardinal sign. So it's traditionally it's been looked at as feminine, but it doesn't matter what your sex or gender expression is. It's it is an archetype unto itself, regardless of one's identification. Giving and giving and turning into the needs of others and recognizing them as your experiential path. So it isn't necessarily, quote, who you are, but it's a path that you're going down. I always like to use the picture of your chart, your astrology chart, with all the planets, except for Jupiter being a vehicle, going down the road. And that road is Jupiter. And so you're traveling down that Cancer path with the leading edge being your ascendant, and then the rest of it, of course, the sun occupies a certain level of space, and your Venus and the moon as well, occupy really important parts. So yeah, that's what shows up for that in having Jupiter in Cancer. And you said in the third house?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So there's an environment of communication, of heart, communication, of nourishment, and of being a provider of safe space.
Okay, that is very interesting, and we invite our listeners to enter your date into our Q&A box. We've got a few dates coming in. We're going to go to that. I just want to share some feedback so everyone can understand how really that it's actually confirmation, Erik. We are creating a retreat center, and it really just came, well, it was envisioned 15 years ago, but really just last 2020, right around the 11/11 gateway, it became very clear, and it happened really quickly. And so here you go, nurturing and helping others, and doing it in a safe space on a communication level that really feels good. So thank you for that. That's very interesting.
Yeah, you're where you are. You're creating a retreat center.
Yes, it's in another country, but we are creating it. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
I'm not going to say too much about it now to keep the chi of it together, but it is underway, and it will be revealed soon enough, yeah. So very interesting.
I look forward to that.
Yes, I know. Everyone, we look forward to it. It's, it's a migration of the heart. It's a heart migration. And so, all right, it's good to see that that's on a good spiritual path. And so I know there's other integers that are related, but that's very interesting. So let's go to some others and see what some others have going on. Let's see, Deb. She gives a birth date. Here's a birth date, 9/16, September 16th, 1963.
1963, 9/16, okay. Just a moment here, I can get that.
Okay.
So, Jupiter would be in Aries. So that is, right now, that's obviously, she is in an extremely pivotal time. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of activity in Aries right now. So there's definitely a major activation of her Jupiter during this time, and also likely into the coming years here with Chiron being a strong. We'll come back at that later, but Jupiter in Aries means that her path of spirituality, or her what we can call even in a more ancient version of the word yoga, or our way of going about our lives, our process, is through instinctual connection to being all into a mission and purpose that she believes in, and really going for it. It's highly actional energy, assertive, but also can be protector defender at the same time. And it could be, it's like, what is worth fighting for? What is worth defending? What is worth putting all of your energy into and making it mission and purpose? And that is Jupiter in Aries.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Deb, you've heard it. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Then, all right, here's Shannon. Her Jupiter is in Aries. Ascendant and sun sign is Leo. North node in Cancer. She says, I'm very interested to know my vision quest path. I'm an artist, but very drawn to all things spiritual as well. Would love to combine them in a powerful way. Does this make sense with my astrological placement of Jupiter?
So her Jupiter and is in Aries, right? You just said it's the same sign, and then she said she's Leo rising,
ascendant and sun sign in Leo.
Ascendant and sun in Leo. Okay, so that adds another layer to this. So this, well, I could say that it's through Aries. It's through Aries that she learns more and more about her, what she's a beginner at in this lifetime, which is Leo. So she learns as she goes all into mission and purpose and believing in that cause, what's worth fighting for. It's also, as she does that, it's learning how to be the embodiment of radical radiant self-love, and channeling that into herself and expressing that and sharing that love with others. Being more vibrant and visible and open. It's a highly creative and active force and willful force that Leo is experiencing as an archetype. And it's through the Jupiter Vision Quest path that she learns more about her Leo energy, and so that's a pretty profound and highly active and it could even be called ambitious a path for her.
Yes, a radical, radiant self-love, Shannon, and that is beautiful. That you're an artist and very drawn to spirituality. Absolutely, you can combine that into radical, radiant self-love. Wow, and teach others how to do that as well. And that Jupiter in Aries, knowing what to fight for. Yeah,
it's that road, and that Leo, that activates Leo. Leo is a highly creative, vibrant and intuitive sign where it operates through the process of intuition of just simply a sort of a way to know without having to, from like a Capricorn would be a very different way, or a Gemini would be a very different way of knowing. And I've known and have done readings for people that have strong Leo, that are, highly creative and on what they do, and they shine in whatever that they get into that's is authentic to them. And if as somebody that's an artist, that's using color, using your really how you experience your love, and putting that energy, literally impressing it into the artwork. That's, people will notice it. It will shine through.
Beautiful. All right. We hope that was helpful, Shannon. Okay, here is Melody. Melody says that Jupiter is 00 in Aquarius in the 11th house, and her ascendant is Pisces, and her sun is Scorpio. Any information from Melody? Yeah.
So a lot of the description of Aquarius I've shared definitely applies to her, Melody, and she's having that 00 Aquarius, and she had the Saturn Jupiter conjunction right on the solstice, right there. What a magical window that is. It's it won't happen again in her lifetime on that particular degree, and that's truly amazing. And so it's the reverberations of that isn't just a one-day thing. It's something that is a very long term, especially because of Saturn's input with Jupiter on that degree. And he said she's Melody, Pisces, Melody, right?
Yes, Melody, ascendant Pisces, sun Scorpio.
Sun Scorpio. So in Shamanic Astrology, we say that the sun is the fuel that we burn to reach our life purpose. It's something that we express often, that kind of imbues our chart with that energy. And as Pisces rising, very, very different priorities. I mean, both Scorpio and Pisces are water signs and both feeling function. But Scorpio fuel is fuel that is about life force. It's about energy. It's about the depth of feeling in a way that it explores it to its deepest edge. You know, sort of that walking that edge of life and death. As one of the names of Scorpio is the edge walker. But as it's feeling her ascendant in Pisces, and Pisces is all about empathy, being the empath and the healer, and you know the mystical journeyer, the one that wants to merge with spirit and others, and help and heal and be there and be of service. And so it's Scorpio and Pisces have different priorities. But she can, so it's a new, like, think of it as a deeper level, more intense version, her coming out into this lifetime that, you know, I would say has a greater mystery and allure in her life, rather than just only being, you know, an empath. But there's an allure that on a self-exploration level of her exploring the depths of her own feeling, of her own transformation and then death rebirth processes that as a theme in her life with Scorpio definitely goes into that space, you know, at times. And it's what she signed up for here. So obviously there's other factors in the chart on a full reading that I could bring in, but that's some of the basics that can show up. But make no mistake, she is here to be an empath and a healer. It's just that she's definitely a deeper level. One of the things about Scorpio is that they have a greater will, and whereas Pisces is not about you know, ego, or it's not about, you know, serving oneself, but Scorpio, you know, a healthy Scorpio would, as a way to contribute, by exploring those other realms, by expressing the strength of your will, emotional and physical will. And so she, you know, she's learning both in this lifetime, and it's important to not ignore one or the other in that process.
Very good. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit more about some more things coming up this year for our collective and what we could be aware of. But before we get there, Erik, can you talk about you have a couple of options for ways that people can have personal sessions with you. Again, it's on the link on this page. Just click the special offer, and you'll see that there are varying types of sessions with Erik. You can get the full-blown, full 90-minute reading. I highly recommend that because you get your chart and Erik explains everything about it. And I know that, you know, some people are at different levels with astrology. Some people know their chart so well, some can't even begin to even understand the symbols. And it does not matter where you are, but to understand the principles and the factors and the integers at play and the influences is something that Erik can really help you with. And that's why you've got a couple of ways that people can work with you. So tell us about those sessions.
Yeah, so for those that are out there that haven't had a Shamanic Astrology reading from me, I fully recommend the 90-minute session to get a full scope of your chart, and especially if you really want to know more and more. I do offer a 30-minute version that kind of gets into the sort of the important level points and some basic qualities that I talk about. So if you're not wanting to get, you know, a 90-plus minute reading, then that could be an alternative. And then the other one is a 1-hour session, which could be kind of a hybrid of the two. But also for those that have had a first-time reading with me in the past, And I know several of your the listeners have had that. That can be done as well, as give them an update. I always recommend if up to a year, 6 months. Sometimes people connect with me monthly. Just actually did another client recently that is wants to do monthly kind of month-to-month checks
Yes.
to see how things are going. But they can customize the 1 hour of time or the half an hour time if they want to and just focus on a particular thing. I also do astrocartography. So astrolocation is another word for it. Astromapping is another. There's all kinds of names for this kind of astrology. I know some people that love to connect to other places that they're looking to move or, check out other places to, in the future maybe they want to live at. They can use 1 hour of time if they want to get into that space. But those are the options. I also do. I think I still have that operate the 3 package.
A bundle.
A bundle, and they can use them in succession of once a month or once every few months. I know one is used them. And I think I'm doing the 3rd session for her over the next month or 2 here, I think in June. So you can, if you really want to go, in 90 minutes, there's only so much to talk about, but there are other things that go deeper into this. Astrology is so rich, you can keep talking about certain things on a much deeper level. It's just about infinite in that way. So there are other things that we could do in a bundle that is very cost effective, especially, or you could do them and get them every 6 months if you want to. That's entirely up to you, the person that's signing up for that. So, I offer all of those, and feel free to check out those offers on Acoustic Health.
Yes, thank you for that. So, again, did you call it astral projection? No, what did you call it for the astral location?
Yes,
astral location.
Yes,
that's interesting.
And astrocartography.
Okay, astral location and astral cartography. So for those people who wish to move or build a retreat center, kind of go and get that all looked at. And it's nothing. Again, we want to say, if you've got things in motion already, underway, it's nothing to be frightened or concerned about. But again, this navigation, it helps us understand various parameters and what to keep out on the look for. As you said, to keep aware of the magic. Be aware of the magic that can occur.
Yes, that's so, especially with Jupiter. Now, there are other types of transits where that could happen, but Jupiter is well known for this. And synchronicity is a way of magic, is a way of connecting beyond yourself into what Carl Jung called acausal. So that means it didn't have any particular root cause of things like cause and effect. It just actually, things show up at the right times in the right kind of way. And, it kind of, sometimes these synchronicities boggle the mind, but that's, Jupiter is a magnet for that. It opens that territory up for us. Jupiter spends about 1 year, roughly a year in each sign. Some years it actually spends time in 2 signs, like it's doing this year and in 2022, where it's in a transition space. So, in that space, whatever archetype or sign that's in, it's creating synchronicities or and magic in that expression of those signs. And, it could be over a person's, particular personal point on their chart, their north node even. Jupiter over the North Node, or Jupiter conjunct the ascendant, or Jupiter conjunct Jupiter. These are some of the more magical occurrences in a person's life, depending on what other initiations they're experiencing. If they have a Pluto transit happening at the same time as a Jupiter transit in different places, then it can sometimes you can have trouble maybe being aware of all the magic that's taking place. But on the face level, Jupiter definitely is a wonderful way to connect with that, you might say, the higher level magic here in the real world. Now, magic can be any of the worlds. You can use it in the underworld, you can use it in the celestial world, or here in on the earth plane. It's just a matter of what one's intention is. But Jupiter is the magic of synchronicity, a magic of where things are lining up for this, in the right kind of way, where the right words appear on the screen or in the book, or where you meet the right person at the right time, and it was maybe it was shifted because of a change, and suddenly you're meeting that ally that's showing up, or that new relationship. That's Jupiter. It's just being aware not to resist these occurrences when they happen. It's Jupiter is it's like, hey, say yes as often as you can, under the right, obviously you don't want to say yes under something very toxic or, unhealthy, but generally that's sort of the prescription for Jupiter, is to open up to those channels and be just, as you said, have great awareness.
Yes, great awareness. So as we look at the collective for the rest of this year, is there anything else that you wanted to add that you can look at and say, this is something to pay attention to for this year, besides the Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius? Anything else?
Yeah, there is, this year we have, coming up this summer, there's a Mars-Venus conjunction in July, and they meet in the early evening sky in Leo, and that is, the first time we'll have a visible Mars-Venus conjunction in a few years. So this is about the masculine and feminine coming together, and it's part of the theme of, sort of another layer of a theme underneath in the 2021 of the masculine and feminine actually working together, being vibrant together, being radiant together. But the shadow of that, of course, there could be, squabbles. There could be sort of ego pressing against each other in that way. But in its ideal level, it could show up where they may end up working together. They end up helping each other by, sharing the love. At least that's a ideal image there. Now Mars is what we call it actually fades into the rays of the sun by August, and goes into what in shamanic terms goes into the underworld. So the Mars is going to be going through a death rebirth. And Lakota would call this a time of Sundance, a time of surrender and sacrifice of self, of ego, of self to be rebirthed in a way that's cleansing. Meanwhile, the feminine is the Venus, representing the feminine principle. She comes out in just a month, on May 3rd. She comes out and she is transformed.
The morning star.
She was a morning star. Now she's going to become an evening star. And so now she's going to wake up and get her vestments back and get her a new ways of into her own personal power. And so this is the rise. There's a rise of the feminine in that way in the evening time, and it could be, the evening, what we call evening star, Venus can be very Jupiterian-like in its feeling. So it can be very expansive in the long term. And, she'll get, as the months roll on, she'll get brighter and brighter. So those are some of the other things that are happening. There's two more Saturn Jupiter squares, one in June and one in December. And Pluto and Eris have at least one more square, maybe two this year, but that's the end of their squares. And that Eris is something that moves extremely slowly as an Aries. Is part of what our experience in 2020 was, but also here in 2021. And I feel like that this isn't the causes, the things that have taken up around for women and the feminine. This isn't something that is just going to sputter out, and it's something I feel is going to get stronger and more beneficial. And I think, of course, for humanity. And I think that's already starting with these planetary cycles that are helping spur that on as far as equality, as far as justice. Ultimately, I think it's going to be of great help there.
Yes. Can you say or explain a little bit more about the energies of a square versus a conjunction? So we had Saturn and Jupiter in the Great Conjunction in December of 2020. And so what is a square? Is it across from the planet? Can you explain what that is and what the influences are?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a square is, visually we can see that as a first quarter moon. Or a last quarter moon. That's what it looks like. It's like one planetary object or star that is between the eastern and western horizons, and another one on one of the horizons, and that's a square. And then, an opposition would be a full moon. One is on the west and one is the east. And so you get that full illumination. It's like they see each other really, really well. It's the polarity that shows up strongly. Now, on a square, it can be a point of strong tension and pressure as an energetic feel to that. Think of like two walls, coming together at an angle, and there's a certain point of pressure as gravity is trying to pull them both down, but they're hanging on to each other. And so that puts pressure and a pressure in psychologically to make a decision, to decide something, to choose a road, to choose a path. And so sometimes the big decisions, we can feel a lot of pressure, especially if it's like one and the other are fairly even, and or one of them is really hard to make and the other may not be, but yet in order to decide one, you have to decide the other too. And that's pressure, and that can feel like it can drain energy the longer it goes on. Oppositions are not quite as pressure oriented, but they can be challenging. They could, fully illuminate a particular issue that a person is having or experiencing, and opening up the pathways for them to not, you can't ignore it anymore. Like, it's there, you got to deal with it. But it can also be where, sometimes those issues can be, something extremely beneficial, and it could open up the pathways to, more abundance and, more, resources for oneself, depending on what planets are involved and signs and so forth. And then, of course, there's the conjunctions, which are two planets together, like Mars and Venus in July will be, and that is usually a powerful synastry of energies together, where they're intended to really strongly connect and work together. At least that's the intent. But sometimes when they're really together, it can be extremely intense, like it was in 2020. where they're working together to produce great transformation and change, and to plant the seeds for future generations. And that conjunction also with Jupiter expanding all of that. So conjunctions, squares, and oppositions, and none of them are necessarily bad, but they are all three of those aspects, astrological aspects, are the reason I use those the most, and in Shamanic Astrology we use those the most, is because they're the ones that create the greatest movement in our lives, the greatest amount of change in our lives, and ultimately, in the long term, beneficial. Trines and sextiles, it's more of an easy flow. There's a greater level of connection and communication. Not in all cases, but there's not as much, quote, movement in when they are aligned in that way. There's other aspects that are more more minor or different, but those are the main ones in astrology.
Well, I love how you said this year is a cleanup year, and I love how you use the words opportunities for great transformation, for humanitarian innovation, consciousness expansion, and just being in a solution-oriented phase. You know, we're starting to see this, even in local communities. You're starting to see people care about some of these issues. You know, in my hometown, we're seeing a lot of things. We just had violence, but we're seeing conversation, people having the courage now to speak up and to speak voices of truth and liberation for a new way. So that makes me hopeful, even though we see some areas where you're talking about of resistance, or maybe some behavior that is simply clearing for the collective. But this does bring us into an optimistic perspective, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In fact, I am highly optimistic for this year, and continue to be so. And I find what's happened with even the pandemic and how much has improved. We're not quite, quote, out of the woods yet, but we are on our way. And I find that, I know that there was definitely a really powerful event in your community, and others in recent months. There are people that just, this is one of the challenges, is that either they become susceptible in how they're educated, and they might crack, they might split apart, like it could be a schism, and it happens within their being, and they don't know, they have no maybe outlet to help them. And so they resort to an extreme level of expression, and where it's like they're going, they know that that's the end for them. And this is where, as a society, as a culture, I don't claim to have all the answers here for sure, but this is where that if we have resources available for people, and that, those resources are made more visible, say in growing up and in schools, and, that the parents are aware of that, then there may be a less of a chance of extreme events happening like this. But it won't. Nothing is a perfect thing, but maybe there's hope in that way. And I think with the lack of in decades prior, there was just a lack of focus upon that, and it was or it was only focused in on the short term and then ignored later. But maybe this time we're actually going to allow some things to stick more, and have the communities become more and more aware, and really spark those conversations, that dialogue, as you were sharing, really vital to be able to just to keep talking, just to if the talking stops, then that, I think that's a sign of trouble. For me, it's keeping the communication lines open and free so that we can all share. And COVID has been a strain on everyone, a lot of people's lives, and we're realizing how grateful we are and how important it is to connect with others, especially in person, and to be able to. Because there's only so much you can do, say, on the phone or on Zoom, which are amazing, but in person you pick up so much in the language that you only got bits and pieces of, say, on the phone or over electronic communication. So we need all three to be able to really connect communities together. And but I'm optimistic, especially with Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius, and Jupiter even moving into Pisces for a few months is also a very hopeful sign between May and July. So yes, that could be really beneficial. If it depends on how we perceive it, and if we don't ignore the signs of magic in our lives, and that there's other opportunities, that it isn't the end, and we can repurpose what we can choose to repurpose. And I always love to share. I know we're kind of closing in on the end here, but that we can only be what we give ourselves the power to be. It's an old Cherokee saying, and it's totally true. And I felt those words on a very deep level when I first learned of them, and at times in my life where I felt stuck and repeating a toxic pattern. And I chose more directly to embody those words. And, it took effort. It wasn't like, something simple, but it takes effort to choose something else that isn't, say, violent or just only reactive, but something beyond it, and that can still express the energy, but do it in a constructive fashion rather than in a destructive fashion. So, that's that's why I'm continuing to be optimistic here.
And you help people be optimistic and navigate their own way to really optimize their own planetary cycles that are influencing their lives. And so, again, I just want to say you are amazing in your sessions, the information, you're a wealth of information. So for those who are getting a personal session with Erik, know that this is a really good rate. And we're so grateful to you for that, Erik. You offer a really affordable way for people to get access to this information and to also understand the information. And I think that as everyone comes online with this and this connection, it is all about love. It is about opening more to love and restructuring foundations into love as we are shifting into higher frequencies for New Earth. So it is all in divine timing, and the work that you do helps people really see the map of their own divine timing. So thank you for that. I want to say as well that there is a recording that you did. It's really a class, and that comes with every purchase of a session, so people can, if they're not very familiar with astrology, this helps to explain it a little bit.
Yes, and I'm in the planning stages of creating a more robust online course for people, as you were sharing, when we were corresponding earlier, the weeks, over the last several weeks. And I love to share, I love to teach, and so be just letting people know, to be aware that there will be more to come.
Yes, beautiful. You can find the link to Erik Roth's special offer right here on this webpage at acoustichealth.com. and get signed up. Erik has openings for you, and you are going to be in for a treat, a real empowerment with this knowledge and information. So good. Hang on, everyone, and just know that we are here to nurture and assist others and be on this path of creativity on our spiritual journey. As we wrap up today, Erik, I want to just give you a moment to close.
Thank you. Yes. One of the wonderful things that we can learn from, and for all of us, is to look to the earth, look to the sky, and the wisdom is all there. The knowledge is there. We just have to be aware of it, open up to that special wisdom and knowledge. The stars, the planets, the sun, the moon, the earth, it teaches us, and they are our spirit guides. On a shamanic level, they are here to help us, and they give us messages and help us become more of who we are, our authentic expression. And it can be profound if we allow ourselves to experience that, give ourselves permission to be part of it. And so I wanted to share, hey, look up into the stars, look up into the sky, and look beyond the trail, on the greenway and the walkway. It's all around us. The wisdom and knowledge is there.
Ground into Gaia. Look up at the stars. Get the free app for your phone called Star Walk if you haven't gotten it already. That is a beautiful way to really understand more of what Erik was explaining. When you use an app like Star Walk, you can see the constellations in the houses of the signs. So that's pretty cool. And it does, again, just expand our own awareness of it and feel into the night sky. We can actually connect in with our whole group here as we look at the twinkling stars of our cosmos. So beautiful. We'll see each other and everyone under the stars. Thank you, Erik Roth, for this quantum conversation.
Thank you, Lorraine.
Again, you can check out Erik Roth's special offer and get scheduled for your own astrology reading. There's a variety of lengths, and they're all available for you. So now we are here to dance our way to the cosmic heart. And one of the things that I'd like to share is a plant music clearing for the emotional body. This was recorded on March 22nd when my hometown experienced some violence and tragedy, and we were actually quite saddened. You could feel a sadness in our community. And I realized that we were feeling the community. This was not just me. Yes, of course I was sad, but the community feeling of grief and sadness was palpable. So this is just a few moments of clearing the emotional body, recorded with the Lemurian orchid. Enjoy this and allow yourself to feel this emotional clearing for anywhere on our planet that needs it, or for any area in your life that needs it. And ground into Gaia as we feel the frequencies of the beautiful plant music. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening to this quantum conversation, and thank you for dancing with us to the cosmic heart. As we raise our own vibration, we raise the vibration of the planet. This show is dedicated to you and all awakening hearts, as we are here to shine our bright light and amplify our love. Access all quantum conversations, special offers from our guests, and online healing retreats by visiting acoustichealth.com. I'm Loren Gailey, and from my sacred heart to yours, I honor your magnificent love and light. We leave you now with music from the universe. Music literally created by the universe, as musical notes were assigned to mathematical equations. The result is this beautiful music, available at acoustichealth.com. Namaste.